Remember last week we started a series on using reflection in our .NET applications. We've loaded the assembly already, so the next step is creating the object. Today's tutorial will show how to instantiate the object using the default constructor and then quickly move on to using the parameterized constructor. So we already have our basic demo set up here, assembly, my assembly, loading the assembly, and then the next step is actually creating the object. Now, if you want to create an object using the default constructor, it's really quite easy. It's a one-line call. Object O equals, and then my assembly, create instance, and then the fully qualified class name. So we have class library 1. Now the class library 1 is the namespace, not the assembly name, and then class 1. Now you'll see there are multiple instances of create instance here. The first one will allow us to just call the constructor using a case-sensitive name. If you want to, you can call the constructor using a non-case-sensitive name by passing in the Boolean value false as a second parameter. I prefer to use case-sensitive because of the C# stuff that we're doing here. It's always case-sensitive. Now you gotta watch out, the VB guys. You think that everything is case-insensitive. That's actually not true. When you're working in VB, your language environment kind of fools you into thinking that everything is case insensitive. But when your VB code compiles down to intermediate language, all of your intermediate language code is still case sensitive. And so when you go to call something that you wrote in VB using reflection like this, if you do a case insensitive call like this, it's going to look for exactly that name in the intermediate language. It doesn't know anything about what language it was written in when you make this call. So that's all there is for a default constructor. Let's go ahead and set a breakpoint here and run our code. And run past that breakpoint, and you'll see we have an object there. Now, calling a parameterized constructor takes a little bit more work. We're going to go in here and just create a really short demo here. Public class 1, and we'll have it take a string as a parameter. So string P. And then we'll do something like MP equals, and set up our private member variable to private MP. All right, so just something really simple that we need to have set up so we can call a parameterized constructor. So back to our object, we're going to get rid of this, or at least comment this code out for right now, because we're going to reuse that object O. Okay, so first thing we need to do is get the type that we want to instantiate. So we're going to do type, and we'll call this class 1 type equals my assembly, get type, and again, the fully qualified class name. So class library 1, class 1. Next thing we want to do is we want to set up an array that represents type information that we're passing in there. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a type array, or I'm sorry, we're going to set up constructor info here. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Set the type array. So type parameter types equals new type. And then what we're going to do in here is an array of types. Now, the type that we have in ours is a string, so that's all we would need. If we had two strings we were going to be calling in there, then you would do something like this, or maybe it was a type of, second one was a type of integer, so you could do something like that, and that would create your two parameter types in an array using the shortcut. Now we're going to call and get back to constructor info. The way we do this is constructor info is, we'll just call this info right now, equals class type 1, or class 1 type, get constructor, and then we pass in the parameter types array that we just created there. This gives us something that we'll be able to call. There's an invoke method we're going to be able to call. Now, next thing we need to do is actually create an array of objects that we're going to pass in. So object array, call this parameters. This is the actual parameters that we're passing in. Equals new object array, and then we'll just put a string in here. So we're going to pass and the final step is we create the object. So object O equals info, invoke, and then parameters. And that's how you call a parameterized constructor. Now, 4 lines versus 1 line. If you can set your code up so that you're only ever calling default constructors when you're using reflection, your life is going to be a whole lot easier, as you can see here. This is just a really simple demo to show you the parameterized constructors, and you can see that there's at least 4 additional lines needed to do this. Let's go ahead and run this code. And set a breakpoint. And we'll step through. Now I did something wrong there, so let's see what we did wrong. We spelled something incorrectly. Class li, yep, spelled something wrong here. Class library 1. This is really the hardest part about doing reflection, is if you don't spell stuff correctly in your strings, it's just not going to work. Obviously, if this were real code, you would put try-catch blocks around all this, and it would work a lot better for you. So there's our object right there.